morning, good afternoon to those of us in the Central and Eastern time zones. What am I doing here? Remove that, John. There we go. Hey, it's John Weber, your old friend, Captain John. Welcome to Starbase 80, a show where we recap and review episodes of Star Trek, all the franchises. It's all Trek. We love it. Have we done any movies yet? No, but I constantly am throwing that idea out there. We might do some movies sometimes. Haven't really done the Star Trek shorts that much. We should do that. Salute the Shorts. I believe I will name that episode. With that great Nickelodeon tradition of salute your shorts. That's another thing. We love Star Trek here. We love all television here. We'll talk about any kind of television. What is going on here? What is that? Yeah, well, I fixed my mustache, but it still looks terrible. Oh, just one more thing to edit out of the show when we make the podcast from it. And that's going to happen sometime this spring. I swear. So many changes happening on the show. But you know what's never going to change? Don't go changing to try to please me. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host, probably one of the best darn people in the whole damn universe. Folks, it is Flobo Boy.
All right, Captain, another week of Starbase 80 to talk about the good old Star Trek. You know how it is. I'm having time of my life. Happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Happy Super Bowl Sunday. I understand people enjoyed the Super Bowl. Do you have Super Bowl plans for the day, Mr. Bruce?
I'm actually working after this. I got to do commentating some esports, so I'm pretty much going to be right here, live in my room in Culver City because the traffic is so bad. I'm literally 3 miles away from SoFi Stadium where the game's actually being played.
Oh my God, that's right. Holy cow. Oh, see, and just one more thing about the Super Bowl for me. Honestly, after or during the Super Bowl, I think I'm going to be at Costco.
Wow.
I'm going to be like the only guy in there. Well, we're doing the play today. This is the last day of this play. And then the next play starts in 2 weeks. So there will be some unusual changes to the schedule of this show. It will still be happening. But we'll get into that at the end of the cast. Let's get this thing started with our wonderful guest. Very recently, he and I joined Flobo on Commander's Log and had a whale of a time, and we had to have him back on the air. And I have to have him on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Oliver Evangelista.
Ooh, yeah.
Oliver, good to have you.
He accepted our standard fee for guests. He said, look, man, we got you 2 appearances, no cash. He came through. That's what's great.
Really appreciate so much you joining us here on Starbase 80.
Cool. Thanks for having me here.
Frequently mentioned as the worst of all starbases, and I don't think Flobo or I would argue with that. I think we are. I think we do make up probably the least attractive of all Federation starbases.
I have to go to Starbase 79 for Bajor and Hesperod. It sucks out here.
You can't get a good Hesperod, is what we're saying, folks. This week, we are doing yet another prep episode for Picard Season 2. Just want to give you some of the background of what you'll be watching on Season 2. This is a very general episode in that it is a Star Trek Next Generation episode. Let me pull up my notes. Put up the old notes. Thank you, memoryalpha.com for
we are a very professional show here. Let me find my notes. No notes.
All right, from the second season of Star Trek The Next Generation, which means this is the first season in which we see Guinan, played by Whoopi Goldberg. Very exciting. She's got a nice role in this particular episode. It is the 16th episode. This was a very good season. Really, I believe what had happened is Paramount saw the first season of The Next Generation and basically said, whoo, guys, you got to pick it up. This is not a great series. And a lot of the battles with Gene Roddenberry began. Gene Roddenberry was holding on very, very tightly. I want to throw you guys this quote from the writer of this episode, Maurice Hurley. Maurice Hurley said, "Star Trek is not like any other show because it is one unique vision. And if you should agree with Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future, you should be locked up somewhere. You're a wackadoodle." He thought Gene Roddenberry, he had such a hard time working with Gene Roddenberry. His first episode was the episode we didn't watch. So here on Starbase 80, we've seen Encounter at Farpoint. That's the very first Q episode. And then we saw this one, Yoohoo. But the one in between, which we didn't see, can't believe I don't have it in my notes. That one was written by Maurice Hurley. It was so poorly rewritten by Gene Roddenberry. Maurice Hurley took his name off it.
I've been there. I did not write this.
Took his name off it. Used a made-up name, and that you hear that over and over from writers in season 1, that they wrote an episode that they thought was going to be important, was going to make some impact. The fans were going to love it, and then Gene Roddenberry put his magic all over it, overwrote it, absolutely tortured the scripts, and then came up with an episode that the writer was like, "That's not me. That's no, I'm not with that episode. That's not me." Even though they wrote it. Oliver,
wow,
Flobo, you both are writers.
He's a professional writer. He's way better at that than I am.
Hey, you're both great.
I put words and things together. This guy's a craftsman.
Have you had an experience where somebody wrote over your material, and if not, can you imagine what that's like, and then share your feelings about that? Mr. Evangelista, please go first.
Oh wow, geez, definitely not expecting to talk about so much pain today.
On the Lord day of all days.
Yeah.
But that's actually that's so significant that you see this situation as particularly painful. Please share with us your feelings about that.
It's just well, let's see. I'm trying to frame it for people. I think the best way someone described this to me was the way I like to put it now is just like when you read a book. You can read this book and you're in love with this book, and then someone goes and makes a movie, and then you're just like, what the hell is that? Like, they totally messed that up, this and that. And so that's pretty much the life of being a writer.
Yeah. And
seeing your words put on screen or made in some other way. And it's just if you don't have that control, or if you don't if you're subject to someone else who says like, I'm going to change these words, or I'm going to cut these scenes, or do what they want with it, it can be painful. Yeah, it can be really painful. I mean, most of the time it's you understand, like I understand like why they had to do certain things, and it's like, okay, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are occasions where it's just like, what just happened?
How do you cope with that?
Man, I just think like I have the words here, I have the script here in my hand or on my computer somewhere, and I know how I wanted to see it, and it's just how it is. Yeah.
I wonder too if we aren't entering kind of a golden age. I'm thinking about Zack Snyder's Justice League. I enjoyed the Justice League movie enough. Didn't love it, but enjoyed it enough that I was glad I saw it. But then when I saw, and I'm not a big Zack Snyder fan, but then when I saw his version, and granted, it took me like 3 nights. Like, I was like, okay, that's enough of that. I couldn't watch the whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the sort of remix, redub, alternate vision. And I wonder if it isn't more valuable now. Okay, sure, make the commercial version, but later, can we make the original? Can we follow the original vision, the original script?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you got to be pretty powerful for that to happen. But I mean, is it encouraging for you to see that happen when people go, what about a director's cut? Let's let's get back to the original here.
Oof, I don't know. Whenever I hear the phrase director's cut, I always think it's going to be an hour or 2 hours too long. But just to clarify, that's the black and white version, right? Was that the Snyder?
The cover to it, the art is black and white. The whole movie is not black and white.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
It's desaturated, I guess is the word.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, my eyes aren't that great.
No, because there was the Mad Max black and white version. They did Fury Road. That was like an actual like Romero black and white version. But
that's cool. I didn't know about that. That's really cool.
Me either.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of my things about almost everything you saw in the first. Is it the first 10 years, the first 15 years of this century? So in the 2000s, it was like, I'm going to make everything look blue. Like this sort of like shiny metallic blue.
Actually, I want to jump in here. So there was the Zack Snyder cut, and then there was the Zack Snyder Justice League Justice is Gray cut, which was also a grayscale. So we're both right.
Oh, shoot.
We're both right, I guess.
I wonder which one I saw.
I didn't know that. That's crazy. Wow. Okay. Craig
said it. Craig just said in the chat. What's up, Craig? We were doing the same research. We're doing both Hacker Man thing at the same time. Prop to Craig. Hey.
Oh yeah. Sorry about the comments, guys. I've been. I should put my notes on the other side of the screen so I can see the comments.
My notes are so damn important. Forget the fans.
Okay. So as we're talking about this particular episode, there was one other thing that I wanted to bring up that Maurice Hurley went through with this episode. Maurice Hurley is a great writer of Star Trek, and you can pretty much dig almost anything that he wrote. He wanted this race not to be called the Borg, and they were going to be insects.
See it?
And I imagine what he's going for is a very different kind of life form. Now let's kind of skip ahead through the plot. Q shows up again. Big eye roll. There was an episode after Farpoint before this one where he showed up and he wanted to give Q powers to Riker because his report to the Q Continuum, his people, which I assume are a bunch of, John Delancey kind of over actors existing in some realm all their own, chewing the furniture and running all over the scenery. I assume, right. So the mission there was, these humans sound very exciting. We should adapt some of their abilities. And so you should go get a human and turn him into a Q. And he chooses Riker because, come on, you're going to choose Riker.
Oh, yeah.
Good choice, Riker, man.
I think so. I mean, like, here's someone that has, like, the dash and swashbuckling nature of Kirk, but isn't the captain. So you could totally have him go through the most stuff, Batman him, if you will.
I just think that's kind of a sexy hue, but, hey, maybe the universe can handle it.
All right. I don't disagree.
Maybe. I don't know. So it doesn't work out, of course, because human beings are, absolute power just does not work with us. It corrupts us absolutely. So they say no to Q. Apparently that creates a problem. Q is asked to leave the continuum, which is crazy. Still has his powers. He decides he wants to join Starfleet. He wants to join the crew. And they're instantly like, yeah, and how's that going to work?
You blame him?
I was about to say, is that the right response, gentlemen?
Here's this guy. I'm not a fan of Q, and I think that I'll probably get screamed on and flamed in the chat for a lot of long-term fans. But to me, it just seems too whimsical. Even in Discovery, when they brought in like Mud, playing that same kind of like disrupting the whole crew, all the storylines end up being goofy. And it's kind of like towards the end, it's like, aha, you have totally surprised me what humans are capable of. I'll catch you next time. Curses. It's like, whatever. So I'm like, I'm so bearish on the character. I'm like, whatever, you know what I mean? But I know for a lot of people, they love what he stands for and the continuum and all that. So fair play.
How do you feel
I
about
think
Q, Oliver?
they should have give him. They should have entertained him for a while. I think just entertained his fancy for the moment. Just I think what does the Q say like about? He said something about like the arrogance when Picard was just like
Yes.
basically just like shutting him out. And it's like yeah, Q did kidnap him. He did do some silly shit, but he always does that. So it's kind of to be expected. And then just to kind of just shut him up and just say. I mean, he did say like it would be what like awesome to study you, right, to understand you and
Right.
your kind, and then he's just like nah, but pretty much get the fuck out of here. It's like
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's got that great line of "You are kin to chaos."
Yes, yeah.
It's and I think that's actually in the episode we didn't watch, but the whole approach to Q has been look, because Q says at some point, "Hey, aren't I part of your mission to seek out new life forms and new civilizations? I'm a new life form to you." But he is too powerful, I guess, is the problem, and just too chaotic, as the captain says.
Yeah.
This episode, Q won 2 Emmy Awards.
Okay.
Wow.
Shout out to the Emmys.
And because they had the presence of the great Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg's is she still in trouble? Do you guys
Kinda.
think she was kind of?
She's kind of trouble.
Leo is saying this about Q, but it actually kind of worked for Whoopi in this case too. Pure impulse control, he says. Or impulse control.
Sounds like a cause of death, really.
I mean, look, Whoopi recently had some comments about race and the Holocaust. And folks, if you're not a very learned person, maybe don't make comments about the Holocaust. That's my rule. Any other rules you fellas have about avoiding a situation like this?
Don't become a host in The View. Everyone gets in trouble eventually in that show. That is just a ticking time bomb waiting to happen.
That is true. I wish I could remember who said it, but somebody said, it's called The View.
Right. like point out.
People have opinions. That's the whole idea behind the show. You don't always have the correct opinion. In this case, she said she didn't think the Holocaust had racism in it. She didn't think that racism was a factor, and obviously people don't agree with that, but obviously she had reasons why she said that, because for her, she's a black woman in America, lived through the 20th century, which was a pretty, not the absolute worst century for American racism.
It's so much better now, bro. I tell you,
we've topped that.
They're just so tolerant, man.
But it was pretty awful, and she went through a lot in her life. So again, Leo Genesek comes up with a great line. All you had to say was nothing.
Fair.
That is my rule. Honestly, when it comes to controversial topics, I just tend to not talk about them because there's so many fun things that we can produce. Why do we need to produce these draggy, upsetting? Anyway,
and
again, this gets edited out for the audio version. Audio version is going to be 10 minutes long, I think.
Great.
I think people will be able to listen to it while they're searching for another podcast. Okay, so technically this is the third in the Borg arc, but I guess that is because it's chronological. In the movie First Contact is the first time that the Borg visit Earth. But that's through time travel, which again is going to happen in Picard season 2. So I guess that's somewhat. We know the Borg Queen is returning, and that she'll probably have something to do with time travel again. Cool. So that's coming up. Are you guys in any way interested? And no is a perfectly good response. Are you in any way interested to see more Borg in Picard season 2? Because I have to say I am. That's probably one of the few elements for me that seems interesting about season 2 of Picard. Sorry.
Is that you? Do you know?
No, go ahead, Flobo. I saw you in deep thought there, so I was like, "Oh, what's he gonna say?"
What a terrible question.
It is hard. It is hard for me because Picard is a show that I'm pretty much vanilla on or beige on. But one of the things, the original sin, it seemed for me, from the new fans over the old fans, is how they changed the Klingons, right? And so, whereas other series were allowed to interpret the Klingons, because the Klingons in TOS weren't the same as Worf, which is the same as Discovery, for some reason Discovery got dragged for it. So even though I did not grow up with a Borg, and this might be a cool onboarding for me, because the first time I saw a Borg thing was a Borg cube in season 1 of Picard. I have a feeling if I walk out, end up liking it, I'll be dragged or not liking the real Borg. And therefore, I'm like, I don't still want to see it then. I'd rather just do new creatures and new things than go back to something because of people have their old school memories attached to it.
Right. Oliver, how you feeling?
After it's been teased, I'm just like, yeah, why not? It's definitely a part of who Picard is, and so revisiting that would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, in Best of Both Worlds, 2-parter, Picard is kidnapped, assimilated by the Borg. Put an asterisk on this. That's actually an interesting thing too. He is made Locutus, one of the leaders of the Borg. It is a very scary, incredibly good 2-parter. I'm really regretting we didn't watch that and we watched this one instead. But this one is interesting in that we actually spend a couple of scenes teaching teaching the crew about the Borg. The main idea being, you've never seen anything like this before. How do you feel about that kind of villain? A villain who is not driven by greed or by colonialism in the classic sense, but they are driven at this point, and this is important. Q describes the Borg as always wanting new technology and always moving forward to conquer whoever has it and take their technology. Later, they say that they've changed their mission, and now their mission is to assimilate. And that's what we know by knowing the Borg. One of the first things you know is resistance is futile, and you will be assimilated. So how do you feel about this villain? How do you feel about the journey this villain took through Next Generation, the Borg? Oliver, I'll hit you up first.
Look, sure. The feels, man. I really love that bit of trivia that you had earlier on about how they originally supposed to be insects, because it really feels like that, like the hive mind and all that, and how they just
there you go.
It reminds me of ants, or something just traveling, colonizing, and not to colonize, but just to keep doing their thing,
keep expanding.
Yeah. So I mean, it's cool. It's a really cool villain, and I love the way they bring it through the Next Generation. And then I think that whole Picard thing, was it I can't remember, it's like Wolf 395. Was it?
Sounds right. I should know because DS9's my favorite. I should know. Yeah, I think that's right.
Oh, that's right. They are tied, right? Yeah. But yeah. I was just thinking that was I just love So I love the way they weave it through, and then the way who Picard becomes, and that I love that he has that trauma afterwards.
Seriously, and that Patrick Stewart loves it too, because it's been central to a lot of his portrayal since then, and he loves playing a complicated character. Flobo, how do you feel about the Borg and the journey that the Borg have taken?
Well, like you were saying also, Oliver, about the whole insect thing, which that was one of the things I always lament about the show, is that a lot of the aliens are humanoid. And so to see an insect kind of race would be kind of cool as well. The idea of something just cool. It has like a sense of Brainiac we mentioned last week on the show. We're just going to collect information and keep moving on. So they're not necessarily a force of evil, but you can understand when interest is conflict. And it's really easy to extract that now when we say we're becoming a slave to technology as human beings. And sometimes you want to like not assimilate, not be on social media, not look at our phones, but resistance is futile. It's pretty cool.
Damn, well, that's a clever parallel right there. Well done, Mr. Voice.
I was just
Wow, the algorithm's gonna go crazy after that. That's a very good point. I mean, I love that they really took this as an opportunity to try to shift the paradigm. And at some point, Q's like, "Oh, you've just met a bunch of losers, the Romulans, the Klingons." I mean, for me, I was like, I love the Romulans. I love the Klingons. So I did appreciate this. Now, of course, they did this for budgetary reasons. For budgetary reasons, they were not insectoids. That would be too hard to make. They instead just painted some people white. And actually, a lot of white people, they painted them whiter.
I was just going to say you have to be white to be Borg. Yeah.
I wonder if there have been Borg of color. I mean, there definitely BOC. There definitely have been some BOC, but
yeah.
Well, you tried to not offend the Borg. Is that what you correct?
Well, I'm trying to,
Borg of color.
I'm a white guy, so I definitely have to lump people by a race. I mean, that's just something we do. So I'm just saying, Borg they basically take people. And how about this part? We get to the point where the Borg shields are down. They think they've beaten the Borg. They go aboard the Borg cube, and they find, I want to say, refrigerator vegetable crispers, with babies in them.
Yes.
Right. Creep out factor, 1 being less creepy, 10 being most creepy. How creepy is it opening a drawer and seeing a baby with like radio parts stuck in him?
Well, is a baby crisp or fresh? Okay. Well,
Oliver, how'd you feel about that?
My reaction watching it now is just I thought it was funny. This is kind of hilarious. But
it's so silly, but please go on.
Yeah, but I suppose the shock factor would have been there before. I don't know. Just too many horror films later.
Yeah, May 8th, 1989. That was pretty creepy for that era.
Yes.
Flobo, how did you feel about, as Leo says, dresser drawer Borg babies?
I guess it's kind of like because it was TV and it was the 90s or late 80s. I was like, well, whatever.
Now, Craig Robinson points out they had a Borg Klingon in Voyager. See? Very clever.
It's like Craig's a man.
And you got to feel bad for the guy who played that because he had to get into makeup twice.
Ugh.
Ooh.
Twice to become once to become a Klingon, once to become the Borg version of the Klingon. And Craig Lubin says everyone knows that the Klingons are black and the Borgs are white.
Klingons are black. No, seriously, when I figured out the actress who played Laurel was white, I was like, no, there's no way. I'm sorry.
And can I just say, I'm a fan sometimes of watching those YouTube reaction videos where people are reacting to watching a video of a song that maybe they knew the song, and there's a whole series of them with black kids watching videos, realizing that it was the song that they loved was actually written by a white person. They thought it was sung by a black person.
Seriously, for me, it was I won't forget this. I mean, when I was a kid and Mom had the cassettes, it was Rick Astley. I was like, no, he has to be black. Like, no, he's not. He is not only is he white, he is super white.
He's the gingeriest. Like, I sit next to him and I'm like, oh, white people.
White people. Boat shoes. Never going to work.
Man, Rick Astley. Yeah, I mean, the Righteous Brothers was always the one that you've lost that love and feeling. Ooh. When people see a couple of white guys, and they're not righteous brothers, they're just righteous guys.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Take a look at the notes, boys. Anything? Anything while I'm looking for my notes?
I'm looking up why they call themselves the Righteous Brothers. They weren't. Okay.
No, with regards to the episode, man, I was like, what happened to Sonia Gomez? Ensign Sonia Gomez, right? It's like they spent the whole opener on her, and then just like I'm like, okay, cool. It's like I didn't realize, they had this Latinx person in the on the Next Generation, and it's just like, oh, where did she go? She just like disappeared.
Let's talk Sonia Gomez. My God, she is a big part of this episode.
Hold on. What year does this take place in Star 2365? Okay, so this takes place in 2365. Lower Decks takes place in year 2380. So 25 years later, Sonia becomes captain on season 2. So she doesn't get fired. But as far as her appearance here, it does seem kind of like Tilly before Tilly, right? Like, oops, I'm just messing up. Like,
I'm so what is it? Adorkable. I'm adorkable. Yeah, that's really interesting. The arc of Sonia Gomez. They did introduce her. I don't know about you guys, but I watched the episode, I'm puttering around, and then it goes into the next episode. She's in the next episode.
Oh, okay, cool. There it is.
And she and Geordi are like palsy walking through the halls. And in that episode, one of the things that happens is Wesley Crusher has to take the academy test, and he's worried about it. And they're like, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Or I'm sorry, my Sonia Gomez imitation. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. She's got the baby voice. Oh my God, I hate the baby voice. I don't blame anyone for having it. Some people grow up with it, but some people adopt it because it helps them in this business of show.
This voiceism.
Which ultimately she's in. Did you guys know she was supposed to be a love interest for Geordi?
That makes sense. It seems like that's what they were setting up. Yeah.
They were setting it up. It somehow didn't happen, and part of it, LeVar Burton said later, we played them as brother-sister because no one told us that there was ever supposed to be anything sexy going on.
I feel like that's a common trend in that series, that they've dabbled Geordi's man bits in his pursuit, and they always yank the chain. Like, why? Why even? You know what we should do? He's engineering. Nah, I'm just kidding. Back to the Borg. Like, it's messed up.
Look, for me, a lot, and correct me if you didn't feel this way, but for me, a lot of the Next Generation was about the boys, and that would be Data, Wesley, and Geordi.
Wow.
That you had these three geniuses, and they could solve a lot of problems, but obviously they're very difficult problems. And these guys, again, are geniuses all in their own way. So it wouldn't surprise me that they did love interest storylines really for all three of them, over the 7 years. But what does surprise me, and I think it's actually kind of cool, is they basically say, look, Geordi is so smart and so original and so innovative, we have to tax him, and so he never gets the girl.
Wow.
Oh yeah, making him blind and short isn't bad enough. Oh, come on. Boo.
Man. And Data is great in bed.
Yeah, he's fully functional.
That's the thing. I mean, like, Data is he wishes he was human. He lacks humanity, but he apparently is amazing in this. So there's the trade-off there. Well, what does Wesley get? I guess Wesley eventually gets to fly off into space with the Traveler.
I have no idea.
They never. That is what happens eventually. The Traveler comes and he goes, looks. Wesley is super special. He's like this super great space brain, and we gotta let him explore the universe. And then he shows up in the movie Nemesis at the wedding. It's a cut scene, but like no mention of like, oh, so have you been traveling the universe, learning universe secrets? Like no one ever mentions anyway. I'm asking questions, then answering them for you. That's not a good show. Sorry,
I'm
fellas.
just looking at Leo's comments there. Jordy was a lonely dude, but he is programmed to DTF. What?
Well, I just always thought it was weird. I mean, I liked that they gave Jordy the sense of, you know, he does have a vulnerability. There is something he's not good at, and that's with the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
But what a strange limitation to give to a man you already made blind. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you'd think that it would be the other way around, that he would have a high EQ because he's got to deal with that. But oh well.
I can't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Captain. These ladies are all up on me currently.
Yeah.
It would work. Honestly, is LeVar Burton not a good-looking man?
I mean,
he's a pretty good-looking man. In that Q episode, I actually watched the in-between one. I don't know. I felt so guilty because I didn't watch the episode for Commander's Log this week. Flobo, I'm so sorry about that.
It was a lot of fun. I don't know what you're talking about. One of my best episodes ever. I enjoyed it.
But I felt so bad. I was like, I did extra, work on this one. So when Riker, when number one is given the powers of the Q in that other episode, he grants sight to LeVar Burton. I'm sorry, to Geordi. Geordi takes off his visor. Now he's LeVar Burton. And now I'm looking at him like, yeah, he is a good-looking guy, man.
Sure is.
Got those big old good-looking eyes. You don't get to see them behind that visor, which I believe almost everybody remembers was a hair clip.
Oh yeah.
That's a visor was like. One of those hair clips they sell on those tables in New York City.
And if it wasn't as kids, all my Star Trek friends would do it. Put on a little hairband, the tortoiseshell hairbands.
That's right.
Craig Lubin reminds us that Geordi had a holodeck girlfriend until he didn't.
I saw that episode. I was like, damn, that's messed up.
That episode was so messed up because he needs to talk to the scientist. The scientist is going to help him. And then, so he makes a holodeck version of her. Then he falls in love with her. Ew. And then he meets her in real life. And she's like, yeah, hey, what's going on? Who are you?
Oh, shoot. I don't remember that, man. So was that like Lieutenant Barclay? Or was that Reginald Barclay creepy status?
It was them trying out the eventual Barclay arc, with Geordi. But eventually, but Barclay, I thought that one was interesting because like almost everybody has been through that with like MMORPGs, massive multiplayer role-playing games. So, like if you played way too much Warcraft at some time in your life, you kind of know what it's like to be Reg Barclay.
Yeah.
Right. And as Leo points out, when he does finally meet this holodeck girl that he fell in love with, she's actually married and he didn't know that. So now he's like creeping on this married lady. Oh, it was bizarre. So as we're looking at the end of this episode, it was actually not a lot of a story. It was a lot of, we put them in trouble, and this is very Star Trek, is it not? I put the crew in trouble. They keep running into problems trying to solve the problem, and then eventually they overcome and they solve the problem. But that doesn't happen in this episode. Oliver, how is this in terms of storytelling?
Oh, geez. I mean, it's great for TV because then, you're definitely going to keep watching and see. It's a great setup for the Borg.
Leaves it open-ended.
Yeah, because they know that the Borg are going to be this huge thing for them. So I think it was good. It's good for them. It's good in this format for sure.
How'd you feel about the lack of resolution here, Flobo?
So on one hand, I think one of the cool things about TNG is that they have the self-contained episodes. So I think that's what makes it comfort food for a lot of people. Yes. But when you have a story or so many tendrils that are open like this, it actually benefits the story more, right? The Borg aren't just wrapped away in an envelope and tossed to the Phantom Zone. Q doesn't just disappear like the Great Gazoo. It lets you go, okay, maybe this is a mission that's going to have some kind of like ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Warner Brothers, by the way, you should be paying Flobo for all the Warner Brothers references he makes as we're doing this Paramount.
I know. By the
Uh,
way, Green Lanterns are the best superheroes of all time.
His birthday's coming up, folks. You should really do something nice for Flobo.
Yeah, get him a Neelix toy.
No!
They should make a Tuvix figure, and if they don't, they should.
Oh my goodness!
There you go. Yeah,
The figure's even worse.
The Borg, of course, would keep showing up over and over again, and we will take a few looks at what's going on here. There were some mistakes or changes in canon. One of them is Q says you've never run into the Borg before. Well, later we actually find out that the Borg went back in time, so that might have been marked in history as, the first time that humans ever met the Borg. We also find out in Enterprise, there was an episode called Regeneration, where they introduce the Borg, but they don't name them.
Okay.
So we've run into them, but we didn't know what to call them. Was their story. Or as I like to say it, screw it, we're using the Borg too. It's like Enterprise sitting around going, our ratings are kind of soft. Let's figure out a way to get the Borg.
Borg it is.
They're tired of that skin porn.
Now, because of this, the Borg actually knew that Earth existed. Can we have these changes in Borg history without it being too wonky, or is this awkward, do you think, guys?
Huh.
I mean, you can make it as wonky as you want, because what is canon, really? You know what I mean? All you have to do is kind of back, you'd be fine.
It's true.
I like to agree.
I like the way it was executed, just because, yeah, it may be wonky, but it was a lot of fun, and as opposed to just like running into them and them being this huge thing. It's kind of cool that it is a Q who throws them in their Borg's path. Yeah.
And the ending of this episode, which is one of the most non-Star Trek endings I can think of, where they basically run away.
Right.
Did that bother you at all?
No, the whole time they were sitting there, I'm like, what the hell are they doing?
I thought the same thing. They shoot the Borg cube and they're sitting there. How long are they parked there for hours? Like, what do you think that was all about?
Yeah, it's like, let's have a conference. Like, what?
Q's like, they're gonna kill you. You guys are doomed.
I know. Just talking about chewing the cedar ring. Oh my goodness, camp and a half. Should break out into song.
Yeah.
I have a theory, and this theory actually makes it makes Q not fun. And here's my theory. Tell me what you think of it. I think Q was written specifically to be the opposite of Picard. So whereas Picard is very earthbound in his love of science and of his training and his diplomatic abilities and, his very cerebral approach to space, Q is meant to be an id. He's just this uncontrollable, I want everything. I love to mess with everything. I'm everywhere. There are no rules. So you got your Felix and you got your Oscar from The Odd Couple in space. And that makes it not so much fun for me. I don't know. What do you guys think of that theory?
I'm with that from a character level, but the fact he's magic, damn near magic, to me is like, you can't be both. You can't be both. He is both, but like, come on, man. Like, if someone was human or someone was an alien with that, and you have that battle of wits, because as a captain, you deal with like people you have conflict with all the time. I'm all about that. But now he could be like, oh, you don't know what you got yourself into. It's like, all right.
Oliver, is this kind of chaotic character a good character? I mean, can you save a character if it's not?
Huh. I don't know. I mean, even regardless of how of why he was created, I think it was a good play for them as far as having someone opposite of Picard to do something like that, especially a recurring character, because there isn't, try to think of like who is the Neelix character in this series, or who is like who is our who provides the comedy, who is eccentric in this world, and it's like there's really nobody on there except for a few episodes maybe with Data, acting like a child or something, but I feel like it makes sense, and it makes it fun. Just to take us out of that whole the Star Trek what's it called, the security blanket, the comfort food, to take us out of that and just kind of throw us for
yes. So can you bring up what Leo said? Star Trek often argues with gods, and quite literally and philosophically, and that's great. But I can't think of a god being like, I am so bored today. What can I get myself into? Like, I don't. If I had all the money in the world, all my shelves were stocked, would I go into a Trader Joe's on a Sunday? No. I'll do other things. What am I doing?
That's one of my favorite analogies I've ever heard. Oh my god! Going to the Trader Joe's on a Sunday.
I go because I have to.
With no bag. You didn't bring the bag. Pure chaos. I came here with a long list. Pure chaos and a checkbook.
Oh god.
Okay, well, we're gonna wrap it up here, gentlemen. What a good time was had by all. I am going to guess. Oh wow, interesting. Interesting. Let's talk about that very quickly. Craig Robinson says Worf was the comic relief. He certainly at times was comic relief. Absolutely. Just as I can think of, as Oliver said, there are lots of times when Data was comic relief. They do pass it around a little bit. Talking about the arguing with gods, Leo then follows that up with that's all of Greek mythology. That's a very good point. Greek mythology does often, there's a history of trickster gods. That's very true. Right? There is this, I wonder if it's the portrayal of power without responsibility.
Yeah.
Because, we assume that happens, but it doesn't always happen, does it? Frequently powerful people are irresponsible. I'm sorry, Flobo.
No, I jumped in. No, I think Leo has a fantastic point. Trickster got its own subgenre. Mr. Spitzlick.
I've never been able to pronounce his name.
Caplixium is one of my favorite gods. Yeah, exactly. Batmite's another one. That's way easier to say. And not to say comic books necessarily have to have a certain format because they can stretch, but Star Trek, and especially TNG, has told us it's more hard science. There's literally episodes where it's like conflict. Let's go into a ready room and talk about it. Yeah. And so to me, it's always jarring when Q shows up into this particular world. But I'm not discounting the entire pantheon of trickster gods type, that character archetype. It just seems weird here in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a Trelane fan. I was a Charlie X fan from the original series. When they do meet these characters who are so powerful, like impossibly powerful. But actually, I have to say, I hadn't thought of that until we got to this part of the conversation. But I have to say, I'm not sorry they ever introduced Q. But I wish they hadn't leaned on him so much for, things are kind of boring. Let's do a Q episode. Because I have to tell you, I didn't watch most of them.
Well, yeah.
Were you guys in for all the Q episodes, or have you ever avoided something because Q was in it?
I don't think I've ever avoided it. Yeah. But, may have just let it play. God, I think one of my most memorable ones when, was it Q's son? Where he brings over and
we gotta watch that one. I've never watched that one before. I actually was out on a lot of Voyager, so Oliver, we're definitely bringing you back to watch that one with us because you've seen it. Yeah. All right, gentlemen, we're wrapping it up. Does anybody have anything on their notepads that we have not covered?
Let's see. I think everything we pretty much said here. Sonia Gomez was on lower decks. She's carrying a beverage and spilling out a captain. It's so random.
I do have a question though, just real quick about the. Yeah. So when like Riker and them, they're the weight team. They're on the Borg ship, right?
Yeah.
And then like I just always think it's funny. Like Picard's asking him to explain like what's happening, right? And so Riker's describing it, and I keep wondering about Star Trek. It's like, why don't they have like FaceTime or like or a camera? It's like this would be so easy.
Things would have been a lot easier with FaceTime. Yeah, yeah, or just like just turn the phone around, just like
Exactly.
show us. Yeah, I totally agree. Flobo, what did you have?
I didn't think I would see Guinan out there doing the spirit fingers, but that was kind of fun.
That was dope.
I was gonna say that. Guinan was kind of a badass in this episode.
Yeah.
We got to remember that because she's coming back in Picard season 2 as well. Yeah, good call.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the cool things about it. Had no idea Borgs had charging ports. Never thought about it. That was kind of cool to see. I was like, oh yeah, all right, that makes sense. And I said this a billion times in this episode, but literally, why is Q a beloved character? It just seems too Saturday morning Hanna-Barbera to me.
When you compared him to the Flintstones character Gonzo,
Great Gazoo.
Great Gazoo. I always hated Great Gazoo, who was, I think, played by Harvey Korman. What do you want, dum-dum? But again, very effeminate, very nasty. Yeah, a Gazoo is a Q.
Yeah.
No argument there, right?
Right. Yeah, Harvey Korman in the original series.
The one last thing I wanted to point out, and it does go to Picard. Q states that the Enterprise Q was exonerated. They bring up, oh, you put us on trial for, crimes of humanity. And he says, well, you were exonerated. So that was good. That was a good thing, right? And then years later, he tells Picard, the jury is still out. The trial never ended. So A, he lied, totally lied. Hate that. But B, that sets us up for Picard season 2.
Interesting. I get it now.
Cool.
So
wait,
now
so Q coming back?
Q is coming back for Picard season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shoot.
I believe he is the Deus Ex Machina of the whole sending him back for time kind of a thing. I don't know. We'll see.
I wonder how they're going to explain Q aging.
That's the main reason why I used the quote that I used at the beginning of the show, which is, I'm ageless, you're not, which is what he says to Picard. And Picard is very old in Picard season 2, but so is Q.
Yeah.
And I think most people, most of my friends, when I ask them, like, why do you think Q's older? What's the excuse for that? We all pretty much had the same thing. How does this sound to you? Because it makes it easier to relate to Picard.
That's the only thing you can possibly say. That's the only thing about that, or a wizard did it.
Yeah.
It's like if I knew Oliver way back when he was clean shaven and I was clean shaven, and then we meet each other 10 years later, and I look at Oliver's glorious, beautiful beard, and then I'm like, oh, hang on a sec. And I go out and I come back and I have a beard now.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's like.
Yes.
Oh, I see how it is.
Not that your beard is not inspiring, Flobo. You really do, I think.
No, it feels the comparison. No, man. Sure. I've been through 4 different Oliver beard waves. I can't catch either one of them, so I understand.
I'm telling you, those are excellent beards you have there, Oliver. Never made a bad film. Never grew a bad beard. Oliver Evangelista, thank you so much for being on the show. How can people find you?
Thanks, Lobo.
How can people find you on the internet?
Oh, just if you just Google, we'll be around.
Filmmaker Oliver Evangelista. I can tell you for a fact that's how you find him.
Bro, get a Tumblr at least or something, man.
Flobo, how can folks find you?
Man, I feel not nearly as cool, but this month on patreon.com/Flobo Boys, we're doing experiences on Flobo Tries. I'm going out and about. Not to mention this month's book on Flobito's book club is Forever and a Day, the Casino Royale prequel. The James Bond series. Check that out on the Patreon, patreon.com/FloboBoys.
Nice Weber internet thingy on Facebook and YouTube for me and for us. Watch out for new announcements. We are going to do an event right before Picard debuts. I believe Mr. Leo Genesek is contracted to be on that, as well as our friend Chris Pitcher, and we're trying to get a big special guest on there as well. I'll let you know when I hear from him. There's a huge clue right there. I'm sorry, my brain has already quit doing the show.
Hey, guess what? I just Googled Oliver and it said Oliver is a screenwriter best known for writing Sliced Cheese and Don't Touch It. He's legit. You could Google this guy right now. I thought he was kidding. This is great.
4 letters for you. IMDb. Oliver Evangelista. And everybody can get on it, folks. But Oliver's on it.
Right.
Thanks, Oliver.
Cool.
So what's your
Thank
secret?
you, Cam. Later, Flobo.
Hey.
Everybody, live long and prosper, you beautiful bastards.